Yo, what the fuck is good, you guys? It's your boy, Gingerbread D from ADHD Flipping, otherwise known as Dom. Today, we are going to get into another banger story. This will be my first time taking Lucy, dropping acid, indulging in LSD. Alright, so today starts off as a normal day. It was about, I think it was 2019. Starts out as a normal day. I get up, I get dressed, I shower, get dressed, obviously. I text my plug. He's like, yo, I got bud. I'm like, bet. So he swings through about an hour or so later, and I remember he had bud, and I bought like 2.5 to like an eighth off of him, and he's like, I got this stuff too, and he pulls out these tabs. And keep in mind, guys, I had no prior research on this shit. I didn't even know what it was. I figured it was a fucking stimulant or whatever, because he had like ecstasy or whatever too, and that's kind of like a stimulant. So I figured, hey, it's a stimulant, whatever. So I'm like, he's like, have you ever tried this? I'm like, no. And I'm like, what does it do? And he goes, well, it's kind of hard to explain. Here, tell you what, $10 and I'll give it to you. Throw him 10. I'm like, whatever, I'll try it. I go back home, pop the tab on my mouth. He said to let it sit on my tongue or under my tongue until it gets mushy. I did that, swallowed it, and I laid down on my bed. So about an hour and a half goes by, and I'm still not feeling much. I mean, online now looking at it, it said that's when you peak, but sometimes it could take that long to kick in. I don't know. So basically, usually that's when it peaks, but some batches it's how long it takes to actually kick in. So, I get a text. I text my friend. Let's just call her Sarah. Okay, so I text Sarah, and I'm like, I went to school with Sarah, and I go, yo, I just took acid. And she's like, yo, that's what's up, good shit. And I'm like, what do I expect? And she's like, well, just see for yourself. I'm like, okay. So I all of a sudden it starts, I'm like looking at my arm, and it looks like the hairs on my arm are just crawling. And I'm like, what the fuck? And I inspect it further, and it's almost like one of those net kaleidoscope looking things. It was like a transparent kaleidoscope type pattern gliding across the skin of my arm, if that makes any sense. And over this is a bunch of my arm hairs crawling around. I'm like, what the fuck? And I look at my phone mirror, or my phone camera on Snapchat, and my pupils are just totally fucked. And I see that same like kaleidoscope transparent thing on my face. It's like almost, my skin was flushed, like my cheeks were red, but there's a almost less red pink kind of kaleidoscope transparent pattern moving the same way on my face that it was on my arms. I'm like, okay, it's working. And I'm still laying there, and all of a sudden I start smiling like I'm in bliss, and it feels like my smile is like stretching 10 feet more and then shrinking back into a neutral face. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on? And then all of a sudden, my legs feel like they're being elongated all the way off my bed to the wall and then retracting back to where they were. And I'm like, what the fuck? And I text my friend, I'm like, yo, what the fuck is going on? And Sarah goes, shouldn't have taken acid without knowing what it does, dumbass. I'm like, oh, fuck. And she's like, here, I'm going to send you some videos. So she sends me those those trippy TikToks with all the shit on them. And I'm looking, and the third one is like the most intense. I don't want to say worst, but most intense. And right after that, all the fucking letters are like scattering. All the letters, like her name, and every letter on there is just scattering apart, growing and shrinking, almost bouncing off the screen. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on? I'm like, hey, I'm freaking out. Why are the letters growing and shrinking? And she's like, once again, dumbass, I told you shouldn't have taken acid without doing any research. I'm like, fuck. She's like, yeah, it's going to cause some Alice in Wonderland type shit. You'll be good, though. It'll only last 12 hours. I'm like, fucking 12 hours? And she's like, yeah. In my head, I'm like, I'm going to be like this for 12 hours. Fuck. And then I walk out, and I go out there, and the carpet looks like there's like this floral kaleidoscope pattern on it. And I'm like, fuck. And it's gliding across. And then I go look at myself in the mirror. Before anyone says, oh no, it's not what you think. When people say they get stuck in the mirror, they say that kind of briefly to scare people. But what they mean by that is you're just so in awe in what you're seeing in the mirror that you kind of just sit there for longer and just stare. So that's what happened. Like, that's what they mean by getting stuck in the mirror. You're not going to be stuck in there for life. It'll stop when the acid wears off if you really are in there for your whole trip, which is very unlikely. So fuck what they say. It's not dangerous. And if anything, like, I look in the mirror, I usually have horrible self-esteem. I'm like, fuck, I'm hideous today. I look in the mirror and I'm like, hey, who's this guy? He's pretty much a bad bitch. Like, so I look in the mirror and all of a sudden I see the same kaleidoscope kind of visual on my face and on my skin, and it's transparent and pink, and I'm like, oh fuck. And I look closer on my face, and the closer and closer I look, the kaleidoscope visual is kind of fading into this. More so, my face is like warped, like it's a computer swirling, kind of computer blurry glitch. Almost like my eyes are like swirling around, like where my eyes should be are like replacing themselves all over different parts of my face, and my mouth is replacing itself. Basically, just morphing in a really odd way, and I'm like, bro, what the fuck? And I'm more so in awe at this. I'm like not scared. I'm in awe, and I'm gonna tell. I have had bad trips. I've taken it about 16 times in my life. I have had bad trips, and I will tell another story about that sooner or later. But this was not a bad one. I was just kind of caught me off guard, you know? And then, yeah, I took a shower. Another shower. And showers are fucking amazing on LSD. So, and that's what my friend told me. Sarah goes, yeah, make sure you take a shower. I'm like, bet. So, yeah, it's fucking amazing. And, yeah, nothing really eventful after that. I kind of just couldn't sleep that night because of the insomnia linked to the serotonin receptors. But I did get sleep the next morning. So, yeah, that's my story about my first time indulging on the spiritual journey of Lucy, LSD, acid. Alright, hope you guys enjoyed that story time. Hit the like button, comment. My comments are really dry, please do. Like, subscribe, hit the bell if you enjoyed and you want to be notified for more stories or videos or uploads later. Peace.